Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brianna if you're new, and today I'm going to be sharing how I planned my first solo adventure. So if you guys are new to my channel or did not see my video, last month in April 2021, I went on my first trip alone to Zion National Park in Utah. This was the most scary but exciting and empowering thing that I have ever done in my life. If you guys have not seen that vlog, I will link that down below. It was such an amazing trip. This video is long overdue, but in case you are thinking about going on your first solo adventure, I want to share how I planned for my trip. So I made a list of 6 steps that I personally went through for planning my trip. If you guys see me looking down, I have my notes all nice and typed out to make sure that I give you guys all of the nitty-gritty details. So step number 1 is to pick a date and a location. Now the date can vary depending on what your job is, if you're working or if you're a student, and what your availability is to either take off for PTO or if maybe there's a holiday or break coming up. So for me personally, I'm a teacher and I knew that I was going to be having a 3-day weekend coming up, and so I immediately knew the dates that I wanted to go, which was April 1st through the 4th on a 3-day weekend. But I wasn't really sure of what location or what place I wanted to visit. So of course a lot of this video is me speaking personally about my trip to Zion, which was mostly hiking and outdoor things. You know yourself, and so kind of decide if you want to go to maybe a outdoor hiking trip, the beach, the city, kind of get an idea of where you want to go and then narrow down the locations. So I knew that I wanted to do something outdoors. I had never really gone on an actual hiking adventure, but I thought it would be fun to get some fresh air and get some exercise while seeing a new location. So I started just Googling best places to hike, and immediately a bunch of different national parks came up in the US. Now, briefly touching on this, whether you want to go international or stay in the country is up to you. If this is your first time ever solo traveling, I would recommend going somewhere in the country. So for me personally, I knew that I would feel comfortable traveling within the United States. One day I do want to solo travel internationally, but it's good to kind of dip your toes in the water before just jumping out to a random country on your own. So after Googling, the same park kept coming up over and over, which was Zion National Park in Utah. Now, I'm from Texas and I had never even imagined that I would want to travel to Utah, but again, in all of the articles and YouTube videos, Zion National Park kept coming up. The videos and photos looked amazing, so I finally decided to go to Zion, and I knew that I had those dates planned out for that 3-day weekend. And of course, things to consider when planning your date and location is the cost of flights and hotels. So right now, COVID kind of makes everything a bit different. So for me personally, the flights were a bit cheaper than normal, but again, depending on the time of year and when peak season is, or the most popular times for that particular destination, the prices of flights and hotels can really vary. So depending on your budget, kind of play around with different dates and locations to see whatever is going to match your needs and your budget. For the dates that I chose for Zion, the beginning of April is when their peak season begins. I believe from about April through October. However, because of COVID and at that point things really weren't opening up, it was still pretty affordable, but generally if you go during peak season, hotels and flights might be a bit more expensive. Step number 2 is to book a flight. Of course, if you chose a location that's within driving distance, and you don't really have to worry about this step. But for me personally, going from Dallas, Texas to Zion National Park in Utah, I definitely needed to book a flight because that long road trip was just not going to fit within my weekend time frame. So I like to use Google Flights to kind of see what the prices are like, and I like to watch flights for a couple of weeks before actually booking. And so step number 1 of step number 2, I guess, is to research what the closest airport is to whatever destination you're going to. Now, there are sometimes smaller or regional airports that may be closer than a big airport or the international one, but those smaller ones usually have less flights and are typically more expensive. So for me, going into Zion, Utah, actually the closest airport was in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so although the airport was about a 2-hour drive away, it was going to be the best option as far as flight prices and affordability. Google Flights has an amazing feature to basically watch or monitor flight prices. So you'll put in your departure destination, your arrival destination, your dates, and once you check that box, Google will email you whenever those prices either go up or go down. And so I usually like to check that box and at least for a couple of weeks kind of watch the prices, and if they're going steadily up, I might hurry up and book it, but usually they will fluctuate. And if you book on a weekday, which according to the internet, booking a flight on Tuesday or Wednesday is typically the cheapest, and so the goal is always to find the cheapest flight as possible. And for me personally, I look for non-stop flights. So sometimes if your flight has a stop, a layover, the flight travel time can be ridiculous, like 9 or 10 hours to a location that's really only a 2 or 3 hour non-flight stop. So me personally, I look for the best price for a non-flight stop. So I actually had a previous credit with Frontier, and let me just say that I do not ever want to fly those budget airlines again like Frontier or Spirit, because it's just not worth it. And once they tack on the fees for baggage and with little legroom and features, accommodations, all of that, I personally will not be flying those anymore. But because I had that credit, I booked through Frontier, and the total price of my round trip flight was $132, and then Frontier actually charges you for carry-on bags. Yes, carry-on bags and checked bags cost about the same price, and so I ended up paying another $82 round trip for bags, total of $214 for a flight from Dallas to Las Vegas, which actually isn't too bad, and the entire price of that was covered by that credit that I had. For future flights, I definitely want to fly American Airlines. The planes give you more legroom, they don't charge you for a personal or carry-on bag, and most of those planes typically have chargers. You get more legroom, and it's just overall a much more enjoyable flight experience. So in the future, I'm definitely going to fly AA, and from where I live in Dallas, Texas, they usually have the most flight options compared to other airlines. Okay, so we have our dates, we know where we're going, we booked our flight. Step number 4 is to book a hotel or a place to stay. Now, some people might actually book their hotel before the flight, but for me personally, I need to know that I have a way to get there, and then I'll figure out where I'm staying. So options for places to stay, of course, you can just get a traditional hotel. You can also get rentals like an Airbnb or a Vrbo. There's probably tons of other companies. I actually looked into a couple of Airbnbs and just didn't really see anything in my price range that was going to be worth the stay. So I decided that a hotel was much more affordable, and also consider the amount of time that you're actually going to be in the hotel room. So I knew that I would be at the park hiking all day long, and so I personally did not need to stay in a fancy 5-star hotel or a cute Airbnb, because I knew that I would basically only be getting ready and sleeping there. And the key to planning any trip is to research. So for most locations, if you're going to like a major attraction like a national park or a theme park, whatever the big thing that you're going to see is, most of the time the closer you stay to that location, the more expensive hotels are. Again, I was going for a budget trip, and also when you're traveling alone, you don't have another person or other people to split the cost of things like hotels with. So for me personally, after doing some research on booking.com, and I do recommend using multiple websites to look for a hotel, so booking.com, Trivago, hotels.com, there's other ones as well, to kind of see what the best option is and try to get as close as possible to your location, but without overpaying for a hotel. And so I found a decent looking hotel that was about a 30-minute drive away from the park on booking.com, and my total for that was $252 for 3 nights, which is about $84 per night. And so other things to consider So whenever you're looking for a hotel, like let's say on booking.com, you have the option to kind of pick which accommodations you want. So if you need a hotel that has breakfast, Wi-Fi, whatever you're looking for, maybe it's a pool, you're able to check that on the side to kind of filter out which hotels are going to fit your accommodation needs as well as your budget. For me personally, I didn't really have any specific accommodations. I did pick a hotel that had free breakfast, and the hotel I stayed at is the Quality Inn Hurricane. Let me just say that breakfast was not even breakfast, but I won't fully blame the hotel because of COVID, and I'm sure that now that things are starting to open up, maybe it's getting better, but the breakfast was literally like a grab and go yogurt, and like an apple was the only thing you had to choose from. So I personally didn't really get much out of the breakfast, so definitely call ahead or see like what the accommodations look like depending on how COVID is in that area. And before you book, always read reviews, whether that's on Google reviews, Yelp, check their Facebook, stalk their social media, even maybe look on YouTube if it's a more popular hotel. Again, reviews don't lie, so I always like to read reviews. And then I also look for their cancellation policy. So with COVID and just in general, you never know if maybe something's going to come up or you're going to have to cancel. So definitely look for hotels that offer free cancellation. Okay, so I'm not sure if I said number 4 was booking a hotel. That was actually step 3. And so step number 4 is to get a rental car. Now, this step depends on what you're going to be doing, where you're going, and your personal needs. So options for travel could either be getting a rental car using public transportation, like if there's a train or a bus system, or using things like taxis, Lyft, or Uber. And again, that depends on your location. So for me personally, going to Utah, which is in the middle of nowhere, taking Lyfts and Ubers wasn't really the best option. And I also knew that I had a 2-hour drive from the Las Vegas airport to Zion National Park, so I knew that getting a rental car was going to be my best option. So for some reason in Texas, maybe in other states, you have to be 25 years old to rent a car, or if you're under 25, they will typically add on a young driver's fee. Don't know why they do this, because honestly, what's the difference between 21 and 25? But on this trip, I was actually going to be 25 years old, but in Vegas, I think you can rent a car at 21. If you are underage and wherever you're going, there often are certain car rental companies like Enterprise, which is personally what I typically use, that will allow you to rent their car, but they might add on a young driver's fee. So I use Enterprise for my car rental, and the total for 3 days was $166, and then at checkout I also got charged $31 to fill the tank up. So I didn't have to pay for this until after I returned the car. Just a tip, refill your rental car gas tank because they do charge you for whatever the cost is to fill that up. Gas in Las Vegas is expensive, and so had I filled up maybe in like Utah or another state like Arizona that I had to cross through, probably would have saved me some money, but just a tip to always fill up your rental car gas. Other tips for rental cars are to see if any of your friends or family members, maybe even yourself, gets a discount through your job. So my mom's job offers discounts for Enterprise, and it actually saved me a good chunk of money. I think I got off maybe like 20%, 25%. So ask around, because companies usually will offer like maybe car rental or hotel discounts. Also, sorry if the light is changing. It's raining outside, so it keeps getting darker and brighter, so I apologize for the shift in lighting. There's also a train. There's just so much noise that happens in this apartment. But last thing on car rental is to try to find one that's in the airport or really close. Also, if your car rental location is in the airport but maybe in an off-site location, and let me just talk specifically about Las Vegas, the McCarran Airport. So their car rental location, you had to travel to get there, and I actually spent an hour, maybe an hour and a half, waiting for an Uber or Lyft because it was so busy. I paid like $16, and on the way back I realized that the airport offers a free shuttle bus from the airport to that airport car rental. So always ask for the free shuttle, because if you're booking through a car rental company at the airport, there usually should be a free shuttle to get there. Okay, so at this point, we pretty much have everything done. We have our flight, our hotel, our rental car, we know our dates. We are almost ready to go, and so step number 5 is to pack. So for this trip, I actually switched over to a hard shell suitcase for the first time ever. I've always been team soft side, is that what they call it? Soft side luggage. But after doing some research and knowing that I wanted to start traveling more, basically it comes down to being more clean and sanitary. So if you think about all the places that your luggage is thrown and dragged and all the dirt it accumulates, if you have a hard shell luggage, you can just wipe it down and sanitize it, versus a soft shell, all of that bacteria and germs kind of seeps into the cloth material. Of course, usually the benefits of having a soft side is that you can stretch it out more, maybe you can make your suitcase fit more, and it can be a bit more lightweight. But I decided to get a hard shell suitcase from Target, which is where I buy literally everything from. I'll link my suitcase down below, and so I got a hard shell small carry-on baggage, and of course the size of your luggage depends on how many days that you're going to be traveling, so kind of figure out where you're going and how many outfits you're going to need. For me, only going on a 3-day trip, I knew that I just wanted to do a carry-on and a personal item. Whenever you are planning out and packing your outfits, definitely research the weather and also just pack for anything and always be prepared. So I actually will make an entire separate video about things to bring on a hiking trip, because let me tell you, I was really not prepared for everything and definitely want to share that with you guys. But again, just research weather, watch YouTube videos. I swear that I watched so many YouTube videos about things to do at the park, what the weather was like, how to pack, packing hacks. There's so many videos that kind of give you tips on how to maximize space, how to pack your liquids, what you can even bring. So definitely do your research as you're packing, and please don't wait until the night before or the morning of your flight to pack your stuff. I literally was so excited that I had my suitcase laid out and slowly started packing probably like 2 weeks before my actual flight date. One tip that I learned that I will tell you guys about liquids is to think about the things that you actually have to bring with you, and the things that maybe once you get to your location you can buy a small travel size item of, use the entire thing there and then just throw it away. So that can definitely save you some space. For example, if you are going to a beach or just anywhere that you need sunscreen, maybe instead of packing it in your carry-on or in your checked-in bag, once you get to your destination, find a Walmart, a CVS, a Walgreens, buy a small tube of sunscreen there and use it while you're there, and either throw it away if you use it all or take it back with you. But lots of times I find myself packing things that I definitely could have just bought once I got there, because I know that I'm going to use that within the time period that I'm going to be there. And step number 6 is to create an itinerary or a what if I go missing guide. Now, this sounds scary, and I'm going to make an entire video about my guide that I made, but it's super important to take precautions if you're traveling alone. I know that nobody wants to think about terrible things that could possibly happen, but it's so important, especially if you are a woman, to really take precautions on traveling alone. So essentially, a what if I go missing guide has just a bunch of information about like your flights, your hotel, where you're going, and information to give your friends or family members so that they know where you're supposed to be, what times you're supposed to be going and coming back. God forbid something bad happens, but if it does, there needs to be multiple people who know where you were supposed to be. I also took other precautions, like on my Apple Watch and my iPhone. I shared my location with multiple friends and family members. I texted them when my flight was taking off, when I landed, when I was driving. It was probably a little bit annoying, but I was over precautious and I would just let them know every step of the way where I was going and what I was doing, just so that they know that I was safe and okay. And if you guys want a video on more safety tips of traveling alone, and of course I've only done this once, but I do plan on doing a lot more solo adventures, let me know in the comments. I can definitely make that video for you guys. Whew, I am out of breath from talking, but I hope this video was helpful. That essentially is how I planned my first solo adventure to Zion National Park. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do plan on making a bunch more videos about solo travel and my trip to Zion, so be sure to subscribe down below, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye y'all.